Tonight, a near-total ban on abortion passed the first round of voting in the Nebraska legislature.
After 8 hours of debate, LB626 advanced 33-16 after a vote to end that debate. Our Bella Caracta joins us live with where the bill goes now.
John Lauren, this first round of voting advances the bill onto the second of 3 rounds before it hits Governor Jim Pillen's desk. In the next round, amendments and compromises can be made, and the debate lasts 4 hours.
Senators against changing the law say a 6-week ban is virtually a total abortion ban. That's because 86% of abortions in the state happen beyond 6 weeks. They believe the bill is an attack on their health care.
Absolutely, people have a right to have their religious beliefs inform their personal decision making. But you do not have a right solely based on your religious beliefs to put women and Nebraska doctors at risk.
Supporters of the 6-week abortion ban say it's about saving babies, noting Nebraskans have had 200,000 abortions since the Roe v. Wade decision 50 years ago.
Mother and her unborn child have their own heartbeats, their own genetic makeup, and their own medical needs. They are separate individual humans and both deserve compassionate and professional medical care.
LB626 is one of a few divisive bills in the legislature this session. Tomorrow, the second round of debate for LB574 is on the agenda. It's the bill that would ban gender-affirming care for people under 19 years old. It's also the bill that prompted Senator Michaela Cavanaugh to filibuster nearly every other piece of legislation coming through the state Senate this session. On your side, in the newsroom, Bella Caracta, 6 News.